Hi friends, I'm Inga, Red Hat Travel, and I'm sending you all the sun, all the positive vibes from the biggest salt flats in the world, Uyuni, Bolivia. We're here on our third day on a tour I want to tell you about. So, are you ready? Let's go on this adventure together! To visit Uyuni and the Altiplano Plateau in Bolivia with its flamingos and deserts has been my dream for a long time. So when we decided to go to Peru, I had the idea to also stop by Uyuni in Bolivia. I booked a tour for 3 days and packed my bags. Thus began a crazy journey to one of the most beautiful places in Latin America. We traveled to Bolivia from Peru by bus. By the way, don't miss my video about Peru. You can also download our full itinerary with useful tips at the link in the description. To Uyuni we traveled by overnight bus from La Paz. We chose Titicaca company with cama seats. It was more or less comfortable and we were even able to sleep. Early morning we arrived in Uyuni. I pre-booked a 3-day tour with Andes Salt Expedition. We came to their office, paid for our tour and had breakfast at cafe across the street. The standard tour to Uyuni is done in 2 SUVs, each carrying 6 tourists and a guide driver. They put your stuff into a bag on the roof. A food is included except water and snacks. You can find our full packing list for this trip in my article below this video. We had 3 companions in our car, a young American couple and woman from Germany. They entertained us with conversations, brightened up long hours of off-roading. We stopped only 6 times during the whole day. After a few hours of driving, we stopped for lunch. By the way, our driver guides were also cooks. They heated and cooked simple food in the houses of locals and then brought it to us in a small dining room. All the way to the next stop I slept. And then lagunas. We saw several of them. The red mountains were reflected in the water. In the warm light of day, the lagoon seemed somehow magical Martian. Part of it was covered with ice and salt. There were bright pink spots with flamingos visible. One lagoon had a particularly large number of flamingos. I took a walk along the lake and tried to get a photo of them. There was no way to sneak up close to the flamingos. At the sight of a moving man, the whole flock would instantly flap their wings and fly off the other direction. After the lagoons, we drove through the orange Siloli desert and stopped briefly at a rock park. We were behind schedule and arrived at Laguna Colorada at sunset. The guide promised to return tomorrow afternoon. We stopped for the night nearby in a small hotel.
So this is our first accommodation, private for 2 persons. We have even private bathroom. Wow.
For dinner we had delicious soup and vegetarian noodles. That night we slept at over 4,000 meters. It was warm in the room, so we didn't use sleeping bags. At 5:30 in the morning, it was cold and dark outside. We had a quick breakfast and loaded into the car to meet the sunrise. Sol de Mañana, morning sun. Here, at an altitude of 4,850 meters, there is a small geyser filled with bubbling mud pots. It smelled like sulfur. It was a quick drive to Polques Hot Springs. Our group was one of the first to arrive. We paid about $1 per person for the entrance. There was a good toilet, changing rooms and 2 pools with hot natural water.
At 7:30 in the morning we go into these hot springs. It's 38 degrees, so I hope it will be hot and nice.
It was a real pleasure to get in the hot water. A few meters away from the hot springs, flamingos were walking around. Some travelers decided not to swim, wrong choice, and waited on the shore for an hour. After the hot springs, we went to Salvador's Dali's desert. Its altitude is close to 5,000 meters and it looks as bizarre and surreal as Dali's paintings. Even though the Spanish artist had never been to Bolivia, local guides spread rumors that he could move borderlessly on the planet and was there for sure. And then we drove to one of the most beautiful places in Bolivia, Laguna Colorada. This red salt lake was once a nominee in the new 7 wonders of the World Nature List. From a viewpoint, Laguna looked like an artist's palette, where the brightest and juiciest colors were mixed. The colors is the result of red sediments on the bottom, plankton pigmentation and red algae. The white spots on the lake and shores are deposits of boron, sodium and magnesium. There was a herd of llamas and a small bunch of flamingos strolling along the shore. Of the 6 flamingo species known on the planet, 3 can be found in the lagoon: the Chilean, Andean and James. We had just half an hour of free time. I would love to stay longer in this magical, beautiful place. Everyone was hungry. We were supposed to have lunch in a village near the lagoon, but something went wrong. The guides came back from the village and asked everyone to get into their cars. For the next 2 hours, we drove without stopping. The supply of chips and chocolates came in handy. Finally, we stopped. It was a big village. Locals in traditional dresses walked the streets, and old cars stood on the curbs. For lunch we had cheese, sausage, bananas, vegetables, rice, eggs, and there must be on every table Coca-Cola. After lunch we headed to the Valley of Stones. I wasn't very impressed, probably because my husband and I just came back from the US canyons, although the individual clumps looked spectacular.
It's so windy. I don't know if you can hear me, but it's nice.
The last one we saw that day was the Green Lagoon. The wind made its emerald-colored water more grey. The guys were upset, but we weren't. It was still nice. At sunset, we returned to Uyuni and said goodbye to our travel companions from US and Germany. Their tour was over, and we had one more day ahead of us. The guide took us to one of Uyuni's salt hotels, Kachi. The walls, furniture and decor of the building were made of real salt. There was hot water and a heater. Dinner and breakfast were included in the price. In contrast to the previous lodging, this hotel looked chic. The next morning we had breakfast. The new guide and new companions, 3 girls from Dubai, picked us up and we headed to our salt flat adventure. We had just left town when all of a sudden we got a flat tire. The guide changed quickly, about 15 minutes. Our first stop was a train cemetery. In the early 20th century, the government wanted to turn Uyuni into a major railroad transfer point. They purchased trains, mostly from Great Britain, and began construction. But plan changed. The trains stayed. There are more than 100 trains here. The wind and salt have caused them to rust and take on a cinematic look. After the trains, we stopped at a Souvenir Store where salt was being shoveled and bagged in the backyard. The salt flats were to be next, but our travel companions had asked to stop by their hotel, the Palacio de Sal. Girls invited my husband and me to see the room and interior. Hotel Palacio de Sal, the most expensive and beautiful in Uyuni. And finally we made it to the salt flat. It looked like an ordinary snowfield, wide, perfectly flat all the way to the horizon. The salt flat covers more than 10,500 square kilometers and is considered the largest in the world. Our lunch was in the middle of a salt flat in a former hotel. The whole building was made entirely of salt. The furniture is salt, the floor is salt, the walls are salt. The food thankfully was ordinary. We were treated to the fried llama and Russian salad.
Okay, just for you guys. It's salted. Proven.
About 40,000 years ago, the Uyuni was a giant ancient lake. It dried up and left behind a salt flat and a few islands. When the car stopped near the island, we couldn't believe our eyes. There were huge cacti growing on it from bottom to top and edge to edge. Many of them are over 1,000 years old and 10 meters high. There is a fee to enter the island, and to be honest, it amazed me even more than the Uyuni salt flat itself. We spent about 40 minutes there and headed to our next stop. During the winter rainy months, the entire flat floods and becomes a giant lake. We traveled in May. Most of the Uyuni has dried out, but there were still a few wet spots left. That's where we were headed for the sunset. What happened next is hard to describe in words. The sun was setting over the horizon, at once above and below, flooding the entire desert with fiery reds, oranges and purples. It was very cold, and my feet were soaking wet in my rubber boots, but no one thought of getting into the car. The guides set up tables with wine and fruit. The moon came out. It was that incredible moment that makes your heart race, and when you can't catch your breath and you can't believe your eyes, and this is the moment worth traveling for. And so ended our incredible journey through the lagoons and salt flats of Bolivia. 3 days of adventure, wonderful people, and stunning views. An hour later we boarded an overnight bus to La Paz and headed back to Peru, trying to realize that Bolivia wasn't just a dream. Now some useful info about this tour. When is the best time to go to Uyuni? From December to March it's rainy season and the field turns into a giant lake. Lots of tourists, but it's warm both day and night. May through December is the dry season, a little less touristy, cold at night. Connoisseurs advise late April when you can still catch the mirror effect, stay warm and avoid the crowds. We made it to Uyuni in the middle of May and as you could see the weather was okay. Which tour to choose? There are so many companies in the internet offering tours to Uyuni. There are even more of them on site. I don't recommend taking a company with no reviews and low prices. Car breaks down a lot, most drivers don't understand English. For how many days to go to Uyuni? There is not much to do in the town of Uyuni itself. Tours usually last 1, 2, 3 and 4 days. In my opinion, a 3-day tour is the most optimal. How much did it cost? The tour for 3 days cost $250 per person in cash. Huge money for Bolivia, but almost everything was included except snacks and water. It was possible to book a tour for half the price with a Spanish-speaking guide and shared room for the night. Other helpful tips as well as our detailed itinerary for Peru and Bolivia you can find at the link below this video. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe, safe travels, and see you next time. Bye!